oops, made a new sphere. I'll just hide you for a second. I set the translate Y to 1. I froze my transforms. I'm going to set my keyframes. Here's a quick way to set keyframes on translate Y. Okay, I'm going to go to my animation menu, go to key, and under the set key option box, I can say all keyable from channel box. And what that means is whatever I have selected, when I hit S, it'll only set that one. Okay. So now I've set a key at 1 for this thing to be at 0. So now before we set it at 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So I'm going to go to 40, hit S. Hit S. Go to 80, hit S. Go to 120, hit S. Then I'm going to go back to 20, put this at, let's say, 10. Set a key. Go to 60, set a key. Go to 100, set a key. So I've set all my lower keys, then I went back and set all my upper keys. Okay? Now the reason that that worked is because I use the middle mouse. If you use middle mouse to advance your timeline, it doesn't update the viewport. If I use left mouse, it updates. So if I say I want the ball to be here at this frame, I just middle click over here and it'll update, not update it, and then I can hit S and set a key there. Okay? So it's a very easy, cheap way to do that. So,
why aren't you showing us that before?
because I have to show you why we want to do it. So now let's go into this. I'm going to squish my graph together here. I'm going to squish this together here. Gradually, each one of these little spaces should get tighter and tighter because we're getting less and less bounce. There we go. I'm going to also take the tangents and break them, make them linear. Grab all of these and make the weighted tangents, make them free tangent weights, and then really adjust what these are looking like. Now each one of these should be basically a replica of the original one. Okay, so whatever this shape is, the other ones should look pretty close to that same shape, just a smaller version of it. Okay, and what I mean by that is, I'll show that in a second, is that this one shouldn't be like this, because that doesn't look anything like the original one. The original one was kind of like a little bit more proportionate. There we go. Oops. And it might sound silly, but the better your graphs look, probably the better your animation's going to look too. Probably. Well, it depends. I don't say. I don't need to give absolutes.
Nothing's absolute.
Boom, boom, boom. All right, there we go. Okay, so now if we look at this, okay, you can see how that ball bounce feels a lot more like a ball bounce. It feels like it's lifting off the ground, hanging there for a smidge, and then coming down and then doing the other bounces. All right, what else could we add to these bounces to make it feel a little bit more realistic?
Squish, squash, and exaggeration.
We got the exaggeration part a little bit, at least with the speed.
So it's besides squish and squash.
Besides squish and squash.
What are the other elements?
Water, fire,
Earth, air. What about the end of it? The ball stops. Why would the ball just stop all of a sudden?
tiny little bounces.
Right, more tiny little bounces. So we need follow through, right? The ball bounces and then it stops. So we need that follow through to let it feel like it's continually going. Okay? Now when we do squishing and squashing, the first three are the only ones that are going to get the squish and squash. Okay? The rest of them won't, because it'll happen so quickly we won't even see anything really happening. Also, what was I about to say? Oh yeah. Also, the frame here at the bottom where it's hitting, we're kind of losing it, okay, because it's happening so quickly. So what we should do is actually add a second frame in there where the ball will kind of set on the ground a little bit longer, okay? So we'll add the bounces first, and then we'll come back and we'll add these extra little frames to keep the ball sitting on the ground a little bit longer at each one of these intervals. All right, so here's a quick way to do it. You can do it however you want to after you see this way. Up here is a bunch of tools. So this one is an insert key. So if I highlight this, I can just go middle click, middle click, middle click, middle click, middle click, like that. Okay? And it adds keyframes, then I can just go like this, go like this, go like that. Okay, so I'm just adding in new keyframes. And then I can just go and do the same thing we did before, which is make them linear. Whoops. And then just adjust their handles. Now, we still have to adjust spacing. We still have to make them all feel the same way. It should be down more. And they shouldn't be any taller than the one before it. The other way to do it is just go into your work view and just add keyframes.
Can you do all your animating from the graph editor?
You can. I mean, there's a limitation to how much you'd want to do there. Like, you couldn't do a character from this. There was one that we used to watch that was a guy animating a bouncing ball, and pretty much everything was done in the graph editor. It was pretty crazy. You click on this guy here, highlight the graph to tell it which one you're adding the keys to, and then you just middle click where you want the key to be. You need to spread that out a little bit further. Come on, you move over. There you go. Boom, 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 boom. There we go. Every time you add a key, right.
Can you, is it like, should you just change that in your setting? Can't you just do that?
Possibly. I don't do it that often. Animation. Weighted tangents. You can put that. I don't think you can do the free tangent weight. No. You can just do the weighted tangent part in here. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so once you've added those extra keyframes, you've adjusted the bounces, then it's a matter of just kind of playing with it, like where do the bounces look good? And it'll be pretty obvious, especially because you have so few keyframes, or so few frames to actually work with. I think I still need to tweak mine a bit at the end. I think I want to not go to the tracks editor again. I want to go to the dope sheet. You're right there, Logan.
He's a ballistic bull.
Alright, so now we have a ball bouncing. It looks pretty sweet. Now what we need to do is add in this extra keyframe that's just going to kind of hold it a little bit at the bottom. Now again, you could do this a number of different ways. One way is to go into the graph editor, use that insert keyframe, and just click on it to add it. There we go. We've added an extra keyframe. Okay? And I'm doing it the frame right before. So here's my frame where it's on the ground. So I just added it right before that one. Bless you. And then I just have to reset its value to 0. Okay? So let me do it again. All right. Grab that. Go to my insert keyframe. This is at frame 21 where it's on the ground, so I'm going to middle click on frame 20 and it adds it. Then I need to grab this and scoot it down to 0, and then I need to break the tangent here and grab this handle and say you're flat. Grab this handle and say you're flat. I can also do linear, and that would also work. Okay? So I'll do it to this one now again, so you can see it again. Click on this, insert a key right before it.
What does it do? Oh,
It just lets that frame where it's on the ground be a little bit more visible. When we're dealing with 1/30th of a second, we might actually miss the ball hitting the ground, and it looks like it's like floating. Especially when we add stuff like motion blur. I've seen it before where the ball literally like blurs away from the ground, like you never actually see it hit. So I have that on the ground. I'm going to break the tangent, make it linear, grab this one, make it linear. Now we don't need to do it to all of them, just these first two, because the first two are the ones where the action is happening super duper fast. If we try to add it to the third one, it might happen a bit too quick. Okay, and you may notice a slight difference in your animation where it does feel like those first two hits, the ball is actually contacting the ground a bit better. It's back. Okay, so now we have this where the ball comes up, bounce, 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 bounce. Okay, so now we have that feeling a little bit more like an actual ball bouncing and hitting the ground. So now what we can do, or should do, is now animate the ball moving from one side to the other side. Okay? Now, according to our chart here, how many seconds is the ball going to be rolling for? On my diagrams, 2 seconds. Thank you. Who said that? So what we need to do is the ball starts off bouncing right away. So what do we have to do with that bounce? Yep, scooch it over 2 seconds. So how many frames are we going to scooch it over? 60. Okay, we have 30 frames in a second. 2 times 30, 60. So we'll go to the dope sheet. And we will just scoot it over so that it starts at 60.
you're scooting everything over?
Yep, everything. So no bouncing before 60. Everything's going to start beforehand. Okay, so I have 30 or 60 frames of rolling, and then we'll squash down, and then we'll do our bounces, and then we'll roll for 2 more seconds. Okay, so obviously our 120 frames here is not going to be enough. We're going to have to add more frames, which is no big deal, but we'll focus one thing at a time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more frames now because I'm going to need them. And my animation, everyone's animation is going to be different. My animation for my bounces ends at about 120, okay? So if I added 60 frames to about 120, I get about 180. So I'm just going to go to 200 and just call it 200, okay? So you may need 240 or 250 or whatever it is, and then you'll just add those frames in down here, okay?
Why is that?
All right, so I've scooted this down. So now what I need to do is I'm going to go back to the beginning of my animation, and I'm going to set a translate X keyframe. The ball's movement from the start of the animation all the way to the end of the animation should be consistent, okay? Meaning that when it bounces, it's not going to bounce and then like slow down, and then bounce and then slow down, or bounce and speed up. As it's going this way, that's going to constantly be moving at a steady rate, okay? So I'm going to set a key at frame 1. I'm going to scoot him really far over, set a key at frame 200.
So Sean, how did you, going back a few steps, how did you make it so that you can hit the S key on just what you have selected?
On the key up here, set key option box. Make sure you're in the animation menu if you're not. Okay, make sure it says all keyable attributes, the second one, and then from channel box, bottom rightish. Okay, so now when you hit S, it sets a key on just that. So now if we watch this, I moved you and set a key, but you didn't do anything.
Does it matter if it's on the Z-axis?
As long as you're going in one direction, you're fine. You're just going to be converting from X to Z for the rest of this. Okay, so now we have the ball rolling, bouncing, and then rolling. And because of our default settings, we automatically get a little bit of ease in at the beginning, which is perfect, and a little bit of ease out at the end, which is also perfect.
Is it actually rolling or you set one?
It's hard to tell because there's no texture on it, which is what would help you know if it was rolling.
Right, well, is it rolling?
Can't tell.
You can tell.
I think it is.
I bet it's a trick that's not. Is it a trick?
Well, how would you know if it's rolling?
By the end.
By our animation. What have we set? Have we set any rotation?
No.
No.
I told you it was a trick.
So it's not rolling. It just looks like it's rolling. Okay.
I turned that in on. It's a trick. It's all tricks. It's all in my mind.
All right. So there's our movement. Now that's not a big deal. We only have 2 keyframes, so if we need to tweak that at any point, we can tweak that at any point. Some of the spots we might want to tweak. If you look at where the bounces happen, boing, boing, boing. It looks like it's still kind of rolling a bit fast for the end. So what I may want to do is really crank down the speed of that. You don't have to do this part right now, but I'm just going to show it. Here's my translate X. So what I may want to do is free my tangent weights. I could too. And then I'm going to really crank this way. And so what that should give me is a little bit more speed at the beginning. And then it really slows down at the end. So I really need to crank that a bit more. He goes way too fast there. That's kind of like the graph editor in After Effects. There we go. So now just kind of tweaking it. He slows down slightly right before he bounces, which actually kind of works because, you know, maybe he would slow down a little bit because he's anticipating that.
Does it measure both the personality?
Yeah. Well, obviously the personality. He jumps himself, right? Could you what? Yeah. Okay. So that one, like I said, we can adjust it. That's not a big deal. So the next one we have to do is our rotation. Okay? So the rotation is a tricky one because, like we've already discovered, it can look like it's rotating. The other thing that can be tricky about it is if we rotate too much or too little, it can be very tricky to, again, see if it's all matching up. So watch mine before we do any rotation. First thing, always figure out which direction we need to rotate. So which direction do you think we need to rotate this in?
Next.
Let me grab all 3 of these so we can see it. Come on.
Do you want it rolling before it bounces or bouncing before it rolls?
Well, it has to roll the entire time, right?
I mean, like when the movement across, you want the bouncing to happen first and then get to roll out along the x-axis?
No, it's going to roll, bounce 3 times, or whatever, bounce, and then roll again. So it's the x direction is this way.
No.
Okay. Z. So we want to go this way with it. So one thing I pay attention to, I test it out. Okay. Now which direction is the Z rotating? Negative. So as we rotate this, even though we're thinking in our brain I'm rotating it 360 degrees, we're actually going negative 360 because we're rotating it backwards. Doesn't matter why, it just is, okay? So we're going to grab rotate Z. We're going to set a key at the beginning. We'll go to the end. Don't do yours yet. Watch mine first because I want to show you what people do. And then we'll set a key. Okay, so I rotated it. I spun it around. I hit S and set a key. So now when I hit play, so how's that?
It needs to roll. It needs to spin.
Spin faster. Okay, so let's go here and let's go crazy.
Now we're talking.
It's always extremes with students. I don't know what the deal is.
It's physics showing.
You have to exaggerate.
You know, the funny thing is, I wasn't exaggerating.
No, that was pretty good.
That was pretty good. Dang it. Too damn good. Let's really exaggerate this. Graph editor. Rotate Z. Let's just really crank that. There we go. 18,000.
So you're setting the keyframe at 0
Mm-hmm.
beginning and then just spinning it up, going to the last. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So obviously that is the other extreme of this. And we're not going to know what is correct until we look at these different areas to see what is correct. And for a lot of it, we have to go into our side view, our front view, our sum view that we're looking at. Maybe even in wireframe. And even maybe having to go frame by frame to watch this. Okay, now watch, that's kind of funny what it's doing. Okay, so there we're rolling, and that looks like it's actually a pretty good speed right there. And then when we get closer here, let's take a look at it and see. So what's happening there? We'll go to the end so we can see it better.
Evolving with every frame.
What was that?
It's supposed to be slowing down and spinning the same speed that it always has.
Well, what's actually happening is it's spinning so fast, it's going like this. Like it's actually like spinning almost all the way around. So it looks like it's spinning backwards.
Globe-trotting.
Right. Which is something that happens like on your car tires, right? And then right there we're getting this kind of like rocking motion as it's kind of like settling. Alright, so that's going to definitely look funky. Even though we can't see it totally with our eye at this point, if we were to try to take this into motion blur, we would see this thing going crazy and we wouldn't want that to happen. So, mental ray. Let me just add a little texture to this real quick so we can see it spin. Hila, there, there.
A ramp to see, to have a stripe to see how fast it goes.
Nothing.
I feel like 4 stripes is making it intense.
We'll do 3 stripes. There we go.
That'll work.
Alright, so there's our stripes. Here's our motion blur. So here's at the end. So this actually is not very much motion blur because we're at the end. So now let's take it back to here. I probably have a bit more motion blur. There it is. Just going too crazy. Okay.
It's like an eyeball.
Yes, it is. So that's where we have to observe this thing and adjust it and tweak it and whatever else. Okay. Now this one we need to fix it before we go any further. I forget what I was at, like 3,500 maybe, or 2,500. That was a good value, whatever it was. Let's see. And with my texture, look at that. A little bit too slidey at the end. Definitely needs to be adjusted. Okay, so same kind of thing. Well, because the X is not moving very much at the end, the rotation shouldn't be moving very much at the end either. I grab both of those and do that.
Is there a way to proportionally edit them both so that it matches?
I could, but the easiest way is just eyeballing. There you go. Boing, boing, boing. Alright, that feels pretty close. Okay, I can tweak that further. Okay. So add your rotation in there so that you can get your rotation starting and ending. Alright, so now watch the next step of this. So the next step is our squashing and squishing. Okay? But we have to do a little setup first. Alright? So you don't need to follow along at this point because it's going to get a little complicated until you've done it a few times. And this is pretty much like the last step that we need to do, which is squishing and squashing. So look at the ball here right before it jumps. Okay? So right here is the ball, and then it's there, and then it jumps up in the air. If I go to where it's here, and I try to squash it, okay, remember we have to squash it in 2 directions. It's like weird, right? Like it's on some weird angle, so I have to flatten it out. All right, so this is where we need to adjust stuff because we have to make sure that it's laying correctly. So even though we've set some rotation keyframes, I need to adjust them so that I can get it to sit correctly on here.
Couldn't you like reset the rows thing so that, okay, maybe if this thing is on angle, I'll reset the thing so it goes straight back up and then you can squish it?
No, because I wanted I could do that, adding a squash deformer or something else to it, or trying to do that, but I can't animate that pivot moving with it. Like I can't reset these handles so that they're always facing up and down like that.
Even if you like freeze transformation?
If I freeze it, these go away.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the easiest way, and also with this one, I want the texture to be squished. I don't want it to be like at some weird angle and then squishing that way.
Okay.
So with this, I've animated the rotate and the scales. So I'm going to set a key on all of those. Okay. Then I'm going to go back a frame because all of these should be back to 1, so it's nice and round. And then also if I go up that next frame, I also forgot that the translate Y should also be down. So you can see why this one's going to be the most complex because now we're using the scale Y, or the translate Y, the rotate Z, and the scales. So then I'm going to go up the next frame, and you'll see how far up this one is. Okay. So I'm actually going to pull them back down. I want this here to stay a little bit longer, just like we kind of did there. Okay. So I'm going to go to 60. I'm going to middle click on 61, and then set a key on all of these. Okay. And I'm actually going to give it a little bit of relief. So let's take these two, maybe to 1.2, and then this one maybe 0.9. Let's scoot that up a little bit. Let's give it a little rotation. There we go. All right, so now we're going from here to there. So now we're coming in. Oops. Reset this back to 0. There we go. So now we roll in, we squash down, and then the next keyframe at 62 is going to be it stretched out. Now here's the spot that people always miss is every single time you stretch it out, you have to squish the sides inward. Yes, sir?
These are new keyframes, okay?
Right, these are brand new keyframes. Some of them are overriding stuff, like our rotate. It's overriding the rotate in some spots, or the translate Y, but the scales are all new. Okay. So now I'm going to drag this in. So I use this box here to scoot the sides in. If I just do this and that, these numbers are not the same, and they need to be the same. So otherwise, it's like, why is he squishing like that? Okay. Also, if one of these numbers goes above 1, which that one just did, this is 1.4. The other 2 numbers should go below 1. Okay. So you should always have one number is above 1, the other 2 are below it, or the other way around. And again, you'll kind of see that as you're working with your stuff, whether it looks like the volume is staying where it should be. All right, so here he comes rolling in. He squishes down, he stretches out. There we go, cool. And now right when he gets to the top of this hill, I want him pretty much like that. And then I want all of these back to 1. Okay, now the reason I want that to happen is because I don't want him to look kind of wobbly. And if he starts doing one of these, see what happens to the ball? It like does that, like it's flopping. Okay, what I want it to is give it the look like that it's kind of like squashing and then coming up, and then as it goes down, the wind is what's stretching it out. Okay, if it turns floppy, then it's going to feel like it's more like a football shape altogether, and I don't want that to happen.
And then turns into a basketball at the end.
Right. Yeah, that wouldn't make sense. So it comes up, and then the same thing's going to happen here. So right before he hits the ground, he's going to be facing the ground. He's going to be stretched out. Go this way so you can see it. So that goes in, that goes out. These two are below 1. This one is above 1. I set a key. I go to the next frame where he's hitting the ground, and this is where we go the opposite. This is where he's going to stretch out this way. So those two come above 1. This one goes below 1. And this will come down like that. And then I'll go to the next frame, scoot this down here, maybe rotate it a bit, and set a key on all those. And I'm checking it to see if I'm liking the way it's transitioning. And I go up, and you'll see that these keyframes are happening pretty much like right on top of each other. Like I have 4 keyframes like right there. Okay, and then the same thing. Here's the top of it. I'm going to rotate this here. I'm going to set these back to 1. He can be rotated just slightly more like that. There we go. And then we come back down. He's almost hitting the ground. Stretch him out. And each time I'm kind of getting less and less stretch on him. Good. Go up to the next frame. Stretched out here, squashed down here, touching the ground. Go up to the next frame. That's actually pretty good there. Just need to scoot him down to the ground. Go up to the next frame. And then every time he should be getting progressively less and less squishy because there's less and less impact of him hitting the ground. Oops. What are we trying to click? There we go. And then when we get here, he's pretty much not going to have much deformation at all. Wait, why do you have deformation at all anyway? You should be back there. Good. And then we come here. And then we have a little bit going this way. And a little bit going that way. I'll emphasize the rotation a little bit more there. Cool. Go up to the next frame. Stretch him out, squash him in. Go to the next frame. And here is going to be a drastic rotation. Oops, I don't think I set a keyframe. I did. Okay. A drastic rotation, rotating this way, spinning around this way. And I'm basically going to put him back to like 1.05, 0.95. There we go. And then once he hits the top of this pile, which is right here, he's just going to be rotated back to normal. Actually, I don't need to say rotation keyframes. I'll just leave them like that. There we go. All right. So now if we watch this, okay. Now we do have a little bit more speed. Because we've rotated him and kind of held back his rotation in the beginning, he does pick up a little bit of speed right here at the end. Right there, you can see that little blip. Okay. And if I look at my graph editor, I can see that little pickup of speed right here. So I need to adjust my graph editor handles to compensate. There we go. All right, now I think he probably spins a bit too much here too. Yep, just a bit too much at the beginning. So I'm just going to grab this and pull that in a bit more. trying to see. It looks like he does some kind of weird like wobble. Well, should be fine. Okay. So then the other thing, the last thing I would adjust in here is just going to my scales and just looking at these to verify that they are indeed doing what they're doing. This center line right here, this 1, that's where this ball is back to being flat, like completely, not flat, completely rounded, okay? So like I said, every time the blue goes in one direction, the green should go in the other direction, okay? And that's what we're seeing here. The blue is going this way, the green is there. The green is here, the blue is there. They're always opposite each other unless they're right on this center line. Now if I see that they're getting too big, okay, here is my original one. Okay, so let's say I pull these out like this. Then it gets smaller, smaller. This one gets a little bit too big, so let's make that smaller. This gets smaller here, this gets smaller here. These are a little bit too big. Okay, so I'm just bringing them closer to that 1 line right here. And what that does is the same thing as like adjusting the, oh, that's off. There we go. The same thing as adjusting the bounce height is it just helps tweak it so that we get a little bit of tapering, a little bit of softness applied to it. So I'm going to have to go a little bit lower. This is going to go a little bit lower. This is going to go a little bit lower. There we go. Okay. And then I'll come back in here and then I'll just verify each one of these, maybe in the side view or the front view. And just make sure that all of my bounces like this are actually sitting on the ground. Good. Okay, if it pokes through a little bit, that's fine. We just don't want it to be floating. That's the biggest issue. Or going through like that much. Yep, and then those ones should be good. Alright, so there we go. So that's as simple as your animation needs to be. Okay? It rolls for 2 seconds, it bounces thrice, and then a couple more times, and then it rolls for another 2 seconds. Now you should have some sort of reason or rationale as to why your ball is bouncing. So in the past what students have done is, it happens right about here, right? So let's say right there. So let's say right here there is, for some reason there's a cylinder just sitting there. Okay, so he comes in, he's like, whoa! Gets out of the way. And then there's another cylinder. This is a stupid way to do it, but it works. And then there's another cylinder. Okay? You gotta make sure that he doesn't hit the cylinders, obviously.
Clipped it.
Oh, he clipped it.
Oh, deflated balloon, or ball, or whatever you want to call it.
I'm gonna shrink that one down too, just so it makes sense that they're getting progressively smaller.
I think you're cheating.
And there we go.
Good job.
Yeah, you showed that one video where someone had made like the plane,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, wow.
And he goes right over it, yep. Sometimes people have put in like little like launch pads. So there's like a little box there that the thing just kind of like shoots it into the air. That's kind of like a neat way to do it too. It goes into just kind of playing with some of these settings. Like here's a helix. So let's say I want to animate a spring.
That's cool.
So I can add more coils. I can change the width. Nope, that's the wrong one. There we go. Put one. Height. There we go. Alright, so there's my spring. So I can animate this height, and it'll kind of look like a spring. Okay? So if I put that underneath a box and went boing, like that, then it would work. I could also add some of the other controls, like under our rigging. I think they're under animation 2 now. Non-linear, and they have things like bend. And the way the bend handle works is you get this line. It's inside there. And I just go to curvature, and I go.
Well, could we do that? I saw one that said squish. Is there something?
There's also squish. Yes, we will do that. You will not use that on the ball though for what we're doing.
Come on. These are the tools that Maya is giving us. It's not even
It's like you don't like technology.
I do like technology, but we have to learn the basics first before I use these.
basically.
Now the problem with this squish though is if we used it, it squishes from the center. So we always have to move this and that. And then you always have to move this handle plus the ball every single time.
Could you move
Okay.
the point of squishiness to the bottom?
We could, but then we would have to add another one for the other side when it flips over.
What?
Because now it's upside down, right? So it squishes from here,
Yes.
okay, and then it goes boing, it comes up. Now it's upside down. So it's squishing from up here now.
I'm talking about the bounce pad. So it can bounce up and it made a little wiggle or whatever. So it can stay squished.
I don't know.
No? So you're saying if there's a pad that it bounces off of.
Oh, right, yeah.
So okay, so the ball is rolling, and then it goes on the bounce pad. You know, it's like just like a platform on that spring, and the spring unsquishes. It, you know, bounces it up,
Mm-hmm.
and made the little wiggle because it's a funny spring, and then it comes back down. So you can have the squish at the bottom, so it always stays.
On the spring, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That'll work. Where's the other one at? And I did that squash. Alright, and squash works similarly. You just go over here to where it says factor, and then you squash.
That's fun.
Yeah. Doesn't do a perfect job, but it's could be good enough. Very cartoony.
Is jiggle fun?
Just a little bit.
Yes.
Just a little bit.
Where are we at? Jiggle? That one? The jiggle deformer. I actually haven't used this one in a while. Jiggle. Envelope. Ignore transform. How do we use it? We just move? I think we just move it. So I go here and I set a keyframe up a little bit. Yep. So you saw it jiggle there a little bit?
Not really.
That was weak.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And if I assume if I pull this in closer, we would get more. Alright.
Well,
There's
that
a
you just did right there.
jiggle. I just
No,
down at the bottom.
Yeah, you did.
Shift, middle click, highlights the keyframe, and then you can drag that over.
See, that's just very convenient.
It is. I'm gonna go to the dope sheet.
So,
Try to think about it.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh my gosh, because I think of things to do to it for like above and beyond.
Yeah.
Like I'll tell you. You'll see it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of cool things, and eventually we'll kind of touch on some of these. But there's literally, we could spend an entire semester going through every single thing you could do inside of this. Some of these that are really cool is like shrink wrap. So if you had a shape and you just wanted it on a surface, right? Like a character has a sticker on their face. You could shrink wrap it and it automatically fits that sticker to their face, which is pretty awesome. Some of these we'll touch on like lattice.
is that like a planar map image that you would do?
No, it's just an actual piece of geometry. So if you wanted,
Plane?
yeah.
So, if you
So
made
like
a
if
square rotate a little bit like to a
If
diamond
I make
kind
a
of shape,
plane-
that one.
like this, I'll make it smaller. There we go. Like this. Okay. Now, if I had to remember the correct order of selection, because there's always an order. Deform, shrink wrap, there we go.
So like the plane's gonna take the shape of the ball.
It should.
Just move it in.
I have to make sure I select the right one.
Uh-oh.
Oh, see, I did it
So
backwards.
Looks good.
Shrink wrap.
Little shrink wrap. Maybe shrink wrap
Yeah.
the matrix.
Maybe they're
Let me adjust my shrink wrap settings. Information. There we go. So now that ball is that plane is basically attached to it. And then we can adjust the offset if we need to. or the inflation. There, like right there, it's like right on it.
I was not expecting.
Okay. Or you can do other stuff too. Like, we didn't run the dynamics class this semester, but just for giggles, let's go to the plane. Let's go here. Do I still have these? I do. Okay. Oops. Go to this, make that bigger. Rotate this.
Sean, if I may ask, the dynamics class, that was the one that was canceled this semester, correct?
Correct.
So, what do we do for like next semester? Because isn't there like a class?
There will be nuke,
Well,
which you
we
could
have to
take.
that class first, though.
Nope.
You don't take that class.
Once you take the intro class, you can take any of the 3D classes. Alright, so here I make a plane, and I added all the divisions, or enough divisions, so that it's square. So all of these divisions are square, so it makes it look better. And the ball should come through right there, so I'm going to go to FX, go to endcloth, make this endcloth. Cool. So now I rewind. If I hit play, it's going to fall down. So I need to grab, yep, I'm going to grab the vertices. I'm going to grab every 2, skip 2, grab 2, skip 2, grab 2. Maybe my math is right on this one. Skip 2, grab 2, skip 2, grab 1. Close enough. End constraint, component. There we go. So now if we hit play, oops, I did the wrong one. Sorry. Sorry.
I tried doing this before, like a very long time ago,
Transform, not component.
where I had a character that had like a robe on, and I wanted, okay, what if I made the robe all clothy?
That's awesome. You went right over.
Right over it. Didn't even
Tried to
care.
hit it, I think.
I tried to hit it, yeah. Let's just zip forward until we can see. Not yet.
That's funny.
There we go.
Just enough to just crazy. You're like, cool.
Alright. End cloth. There we
This
go.
is one of the things I played with over the summer, trying to make that ghost.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to make it like a cloth ghost. Didn't work out in my favor.
Skip 3, go 2.
So yeah, then for constraining these
mischief?
points here,
Was that?
Mhm.
so just constrain the points. Like I had a character that was wearing like a robe, but the bottom half of the robe wasn't connected to the rest of it. It was like a separate piece.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I tried to simulate it, it kind of just fell off.
Right.
How do you make it not fall?
You have to constrain it somehow. So if it's like a pair of pants, you would constrain the top like a belt.
Well, would it be? How did you connect it to the character as well? Like if the character's moving around,
Then you would parent this constraint to the object that's moving.
and that'll work just like that.
Hmm? Now, this thing doesn't collide with it. Like I hit play and he goes whoop, right through it. So then I have to click on him and then go to end cloth, make him a colliding object. And then when we hit play, boing.
That's cool.
Yep.
That's actually really cool.
Can you make the cloth like
I'm
slide?
surprised mine didn't completely break, to be honest.
It didn't. It's actually pretty nice with this. If I go to my cloth presets, I can go to my dynamic properties and change things like stretch resistance. I'm going to turn that up. And compression resistance, I'll turn that up. So it doesn't want to compress. It doesn't want to stretch.
No, it's
This is the
perfect.
fun
I love it so much.
Menus upon menus
I am
upon
so
menus.
happy.
Ooh, still too much there.
That's usually what happens.
Yeah. Well, this is what we'll do then. We'll just do this.
Do you think the dynamics is easier to do in Cinema 4D?
Some of it is, but it can't do the same kind of stuff that Maya can do.
Maya can do
Maya can do everything. I'm going to make this terrible.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
There we go.
It broke already.
There we go.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Alright. Not perfect. We can tweak it, obviously. Oh, it fell apart.
Can you make it so it kind of like just
One of the pieces
tears a
makes it
hole
all
through it?
Still
It
got
kinda,
that plane that
burns
comes
through
out
it like
of
a molten,
Like a molten lava.
sphere of, yeah.
We could.
We had some
I would have too much fun with
Can we
this.
melt bait it and make it really?
Now, can we just ignore
Crazy.
this assignment and do one with this stuff?
No.
Can we do that?
You can add this to
Cloth
it.
is fun.
It is fun, but it's also frustrating.
All of mine is frustrating.
There we go. So I remade my top constraint, and then there we go. That's better.
Couldn't stop it.
Why does it just bounce when nothing's affecting it?
Why does it? Wind. There's wind in there, and it's kind of like settling.
Oh, they have a just predisposition wind.
Yeah.
The physics of the program itself.
So on here,
The gravity in there.
here's the end cloth, and here's the nucleus. And the nucleus has built-in gravity, and it has built-in wind.
I'll make it windy. That'd be cool. There we go. It tears itself apart.
It's gone.
Oh, gosh.
And then we can pull that down some. So maybe it's a little bit windy.
Twisters.
Gonna miss it. And we just make this go.
Cool. That's pretty good.
We'll add a little bit of noise.
Still gonna miss it.
It's still gonna miss it. I gotta take the speed down. That's the problem. It's just too windy out. It's Michigan.
No. Oh, it's gonna go.
There we go.
It just destroys it.
This is what I like best about dynamics. Is literally just like playing with the stuff to get it to do all the different things. You just literally just playing just different buttons. See what happens. There we go. That's cool.
How long does that take to render? Like 2 months?
No, it's just a piece of geometry.
So like, how do you UV outline that?
You would UV it out beforehand.
And then
Because it's a plane, it's already done.
Yeah.
Right?
If you,
So if I go and put a Mila on it with some stripes,
You don't have any type of like stretching or anything though?
well, it would stretch a little bit, but not much, depending on what kind of cloth you've chosen. And because when I did my terrible surface, I didn't pick a specific outline that went from one side to the other, that's why it's tearing these little holes as opposed to like one big hole that would like cut it in half.
what if you turn it to tries? Would it be more like dynamically looking?
Yes, it would. That's the only sucky thing about it is that with the squares, it looks kind of crappy. So usually what I do, where's my plane? Is I go to my modeling menu, I go to my multi-cut, and I go like this. And what that does, it just gives you a lot of different random shapes so that when you select that surface to be torn, it just looks a lot better because you get these jagged shapes as opposed to squares falling off, which looks kind of ridiculous.
What button is that?
Multi-cut.
Well, I mean,
There's the UVs are laid out.
the button to cut it whichever way.
Yeah, that's the multi-cut.
Well, I mean, like, just drag and drop.
You're just dragging off and then through it.
Okay.
Okay, as opposed to clicking on the edges to
Yeah.
connect them.
That's
Yep.
why I thought. That's like the only way I knew how to use it was just drag it, click on the edges.
Yep, you drag straight across it. And the UVs are laid out because there's nothing there. When you have a plane and you do that kind of stuff, there's no deformation. It's just those. They're already there. So again, we'll just drop on.
Like a picture on there just to show us.
There you go.
Or that works too, I guess.
I'll put a picture on there. Let me delete my history on it so I don't have a million things. I'll delete my... That.
Because they're single, just one liners. It's like,
I like
and
that
some of
one.
the ones that stick out. Here's
That goes the best out.
beer label.
Beer label.
Just rip it up.
There we go. Yeah.
Cool label.
No, it's not. That's my cool label.
Bought 8 apples. In case you're asking
Where
about
is my
it.
other one? There he is.
But I can only juggle 8. I'm right here about 9 apples. Drag them up.
There it is. Alright. So now if we were to do this and like we render this out, that flag would need to have the full deformation motion blur. Okay, so when we did the motion blur stuff, if we just did this, the flag would not blur at all, but the ball would because the ball doesn't have deformation. So if we set this to full, then we would be good. So then both would work.
Is the image on both sides?
Yeah, because it's just a piece of paper. Now we can't see it on here because I have to go to lighting and say two-sided,
Oh, okay.
and then we can see it on both sides.
Okay.
And this is text. Multi-purpose. All right. So lots of different things you can do with it. Lots of different areas to play with. My advice: go to YouTube, look up just if you're interested in dynamics stuff more. Look up different things you can do with dynamics. The animation again is the focus. So we don't want to take away from the animation to it. We want to enhance it somehow. So find a way to find a way to enhance it classily.
Classily. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, that's the word.
You have to bounce and miss every flag.